guys, welcome back to Elephants in the Room. Also, I promise you guys, the next episode I will have that fire alarm fixed. I know I've had a lot of people ask about it and it's in the works, so it's gonna get fixed. So I apologize about that. Welcome back, guys. I hope you had a good week. So much has happened this week, and obviously you guys are going to be seeing this not in real time because I filmed episodes beforehand, but on the 19th, supposedly TikTok is getting banned, which is crazy. So that's in the news, which is so unfortunate because I just hit 100K on Elephants in the Room TikTok. So thank you guys so much. I love you guys. Thank you guys for joining me on this journey of just trying to figure out how to be a human and, being vulnerable about the whole process. So thank you guys for that. Oh gosh, it's a little chilly in here today. Usually it's so hot in this room, but specifically today it's a little bit chilly. So bear with me as I shiver with my cute pillow that I love and also my sweet little Coco girl. Anyways, okay guys, so today we are going to be talking about something I've honestly kind of wanted to talk about for a while. But again, with every episode, it's always hard to try and decide what I want to talk about and also how I want to talk about it, because this isn't necessarily an information-based podcast. Obviously, I share a lot of information, but I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, I'm not any of those things. And so even though I talk about some of the statistics and the facts and talk about trauma and talk about relationships and all these different things, I obviously am no professional here. So it's always an interesting balance trying to find how much fact to bring into each episode and how much, just experience and or storytelling I bring into each episode. But this is something that I've wanted to talk about for a minute. So we're going to talk about it today. And I think one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it is because I feel like it is something that oftentimes is just really embarrassing to talk about or can feel embarrassing to talk about, even though I don't think it's embarrassing at all now. But today we're going to be talking about rejection. Rejection. I don't know if there's a human out there in the world that's never experienced a level or type of rejection. I think at a time in our lives we all have. And rejection is not fun. It's not fun. So let's talk about it. So I think we all know what rejection is, and there's been many times in my life that I have been rejected in multiple different situations and relationships. So first I want to start with talking about why I feel like we fear rejection, because I think inevitably we all fear rejection. Rejection isn't something that we necessarily welcome or that we enjoy. So I think a big root of fear of rejection can stem from childhood wounds. So if you feel like your parent or your caregiver didn't choose you, didn't love you, neglected you, and or abandoned you, oftentimes you can just, from the time you were a child, feel that you are just not enough to be chosen and not enough to be accepted and loved. And so I think that's where a fear of rejection can stem from for a lot of people. And definitely that's a huge stem of it for me. But it's actually crazy because when I was looking up rejection and some of the psychology behind it, it talked about how the reason that rejection feels painful is because evolutionarily, rejection from a group used to mean life or death, so our brains are still wired to react strongly to it. So literally, evolutionarily, rejection meant life or death. So our brains are wired to react obviously negatively to it. And I also found something very interesting, which is that rejection triggers the same parts of the brain that process physical pain. and it's called the anterior cingulate cortex. So like when you experience physical pain, your brain actually experiences the same type of pain when you are rejected by someone. I thought that was crazy because I looked back on times in my life when I've been rejected and I was like, yeah, it literally felt like a punch in the gut. Like it literally felt like, oh, like a physical pain. And so it's crazy that literally the same part of our brain processes. So the same part of our brain, let's see what it says. Yeah, so the anterior cingulate cortex is a part of our brain, and rejection triggers that, which is the same part of our brain that gets triggered when we are physically hurt, which is crazy. Like when you really think about it. Yeah, and I think just like I said, in regards to the childhood thing, we internalize the fear of not being good enough. And that oftentimes carries into adulthood and makes our fear of rejection worse. So I think what I'm trying to say here is generally, all of us, to a certain extent, we fear rejection and or we don't want it, right? We don't, like innately, we fear rejection because it's literally, we are literally wired to react strongly to rejection. So all of us fear it. None of us want it. And the fear of it can be enhanced based on what we've been through, you know, in our lives, and especially as children. So there are obviously a lot of types of rejection. So I'm going to talk about the types of rejection, and then I'm going to talk about the times that I've been rejected in each scenario. I want to start first with romantic relationships. Heartbreak, rejection. Sometimes you get rejected initially from someone that you're interested in, and sometimes it comes after. Sometimes you begin a relationship with this person, or you begin the talking stage, or whatever it may be. You're both initially interested, and then at some point that person decides that they don't want you anymore. And that is painful from no matter what angle you look at it. Literally, no matter how you look at it, it's painful. There's nothing like that feeling. Hi. Anyways, okay, so romantic rejection. It oftentimes feels personal, and oftentimes it feels like it is because you are not enough, right? It's like oftentimes it's really hard for us to rationalize why someone wouldn't want to be with us when we all, you know, in an ideal world, think highly of ourselves and think that we are valuable and worthy of someone choosing us and loving us. And we want someone to appreciate us for who we are. And so oftentimes when we are rejected by someone, it just feels personal. It just feels really personal. And this is, you know, let's just get right into it. If this is the one I'm starting with. When have I been romantically rejected? Many times. But definitely the one that stung the worst was obviously, it's hard. This is not something, it's so hard because this is something that I don't really like talking about. Like I know people think I like love talking about it, and they act like I make being ex-Mormon and divorce my whole personality, when in reality, it's not my personality, but it is like an extremely life-altering event, and a lot of my pain is rooted within it all, right? Within being a ex-Mormon, divorced girl with drug addict parents. And so my source of relation to you guys and relating to you and sharing different things about rejection is going to tie to what I've been through. So not that I want to sit here and talk about my marriage, because I don't, but it directly ties to this topic, and I will always be honest and vulnerable with you guys, because that's what I'm here to do. So anyways, without further ado, let's talk about how I was rejected within my marriage. Without giving too much detail, obviously to get married, two people have to be willing and wanting to get married. And very quickly after that happened, that person changed their mind, and it was a one-sided relationship in the sense of one of us desired to be married and one of us didn't. And that was the ultimate rejection that I faced, because holy crap. Not just to be rejected in a relationship, but to be rejected to the point where someone literally wants to divorce you is a really crappy feeling. And it completely rocked my entire sense of self, my entire identity, my self-esteem. And to be honest, I didn't have a very high self-esteem before I got into that relationship because of the wounds of my parents. But I'll tell you, the self-esteem that I did have and any self-love or self-respect that I did have was wiped away when I felt like I was not good enough to choose after already being chosen. It was psychologically so damaging. And even though I'm the one who ultimately ended up filing for the divorce, I was rejected in that relationship. And I don't know if I've ever outright said that, but I was. Emotionally and mentally, I was rejected. And it sucked. It sucked. I don't know how else to say it. It was so altering to my brain. And so that type of rejection really, really changes things. And now looking back, obviously, I'm so grateful for it because it led me to who I'm with now. And like, I literally wouldn't want it any other way. It was God's protection over my life. But rejection sucks. It hurts. It's painful. And so that is one of the times that I was rejected romantically. And I've also been rejected romantically in other ways at other times with other people. But that's obviously my biggest story. Professional rejection. Okay. So this could be career or job related. Professional rejection can feel like your worth is being questioned. Man, let me just tell you guys something. One of the most traumatic moments I've ever had in my line of work or any job that I've ever had was when I got fired. Now, let me just say this. I pride myself in being a hard worker, and I also have always, been proud of the fact that I feel like I've been an honorable, honest person in every job that I've had. And I've always wanted to be good at what I did, no matter what it was, whether it was when I worked at the Froyo shop when I was 16 or, doing this or any of the other jobs that I had. And to be honest, I don't even know if I've talked about being fired. I think maybe I have one other time on this podcast. But let me just tell you, it was a huge, 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 huge emotional day for me. So let me give you guys some context. I had just moved to Arizona and I was engaged and I started working at this law firm as like a law firm assistant. Now, never have I ever been good at driving, and never have I ever been good at directions, and never have I ever been good at parking and all the things that would entail working in a really busy city running errands for people. So I'll just preface with that. But this job was an awesome job, and I was so blessed to have it. And after, I can't remember how long, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, I was pulled into the office and told that Friday would be my last day and that they felt like I just wasn't the best fit for the job, given that I didn't live there originally, so I didn't have much knowledge of the town or the area, and that I just wasn't great with time management as far as running errands and doing these different things. Now, mind you, I was trying my best. But I didn't know the town. I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing, and I was doing my best to do it in a timely manner, but I definitely was probably not the best fit for that job. But let me just tell you, when I got pulled in that office and I got fired, I was in shambles. I had never experienced that kind of rejection in the workplace. I'd never been fired from a job. Every job I had gotten promotions. My boss liked me. I worked hard. Like, I was not used to that. And it was so embarrassing. I remember feeling so embarrassed and feeling like there is something wrong with me. People are going to think there's something wrong with me. People are going to think that I'm a bad worker, that I'm unvaluable, that I'm not a good person, that I'm not valuable. And if this employer thinks I'm not valuable, like, other people are going to think that. And I spiraled. I was so scared. I remember being so scared of telling my extended family at the time. Well, my in-laws and all of that side of the family, because I was living in Arizona at the time. And oh my gosh, I was so sad. I felt so bad about myself. It made me feel so crappy. Like, it truly did. Professional rejection, being rejected in the workplace, can really feel like your worth is being questioned. Like, I felt so unworthy. And the truth is, it wasn't that I was bad. I just wasn't a good fit. And that was a hard pill to swallow, because you're just not going to be a good fit for everything you want to do in this life, or everything that you do. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And that really, really rocked me. It really upset me. I was really embarrassed. I was really ashamed. The next type of rejection that we face is social rejection. Not being included or ignored can trigger a lot of feelings of isolation. Oh, man. Friendship stuff. Just like love is one of the, like, love and heartbreak, like anything tied to romantic relationships, when you're rejected or when you go through heartbreak, is so earth-shattering. So is friendship rejection, and so is friendship breakup. I feel like your friends are one of the closest people you hold to yourself. And not only that, but we all have this deep desire to be loved, to be accepted. And when someone makes fun of you, belittles you, rejects you, and acts like you're not enough to be friends with them, when you feel like an outcast at school, it's the worst feeling. Growing up, I know I've talked about this, but I really struggled with my weight. I mean, I was just a kid, but one of the ways that I coped with everything that I went through as a child was with food. I comforted myself with food. And I was a heavier kid. And one of the times I got bullied growing up was for my weight. When I was in third grade, there were these two guys, and it's like, I don't know why it's like still kind of hard for me to talk about. It's so weird. I'm like getting choked up, but during the winter, they ended up grabbing me, sticking my face in the snow, giving me like a whatever when you like stick someone's face in the snow and then rub it in. And they pulled me out of the snow, and then he hit me with a shovel. And it was two kids, but one of them. And I actually still have a scar under my lip because of it. And they proceeded to call me fat and say really mean things to me. It wasn't fun. And it was really embarrassing. It was super embarrassing. And I remember it was really embarrassing. And it made me feel really isolated. And there were also many other ways where I felt inadequate at school, or like I wasn't enough, and I wanted to fit in so deeply. And it's so sad, because I think like kids are so honest. Like, kids are one of the most honest people. And I remember growing up as a kid, like I just had such a deep desire to fit in. I just wanted to be normal so bad. And so anytime I felt like I was the outcast, or that I didn't fit in, it was like the worst feeling in the world. It's like so hard to explain. And I know you guys have all felt this. This is something that we've all gone through, but no one walks around being like, hey, do you want to hear about the time that I got rejected? Because we feel like it's embarrassing. And it's not. It's honestly, especially bullying is embarrassing for the bully. It's not embarrassing for you. The next rejection, or the next type of rejection, is self-rejection. And that is when you have It's crazy, just to say this before I read this. It's crazy that before we even allow ourselves to put ourselves out there in efforts to receive love and acceptance from others, we reject ourselves before someone else can even reject us. And it stems from such an internalized fear of inadequacy, that we're not enough, that we're not good enough. So it's like we're rejecting ourselves and we're belittling ourselves. And self-rejection is scary and sad, because it can really, really lead to a lot of pain and lack of self-esteem, and it can lead to you putting yourself into abusive and unhealthy relationships with people who take advantage of you because you don't feel like you're good enough or worthy enough to ask for more. And so self-rejection is not only scary, but I know for me, it stemmed out of a place of a fear of failure and just this place of wanting to be perfect, perfectionism, which totally stems from my childhood of not feeling like I was chosen or prioritized or put first. And so, yeah, just this constant voice in my head that told me like I wasn't enough and that I wasn't chosen. And I thought that my worth was dependent on how other people treated me and how other people valued me. And it's not, but it's so easy to feel like that. So if you're in that position and you feel like you're not worthy because whether it's your parents or it's a loved one or it's a friend or a significant other, they make you feel like you're not good enough and they continue to not choose you. And you start to internalize it and think it's about you. I just want to encourage you that you're not alone, and it's so easy to do. And I wish I could take that thought away from you and that feeling away from you. And I don't think I could, even if I sit here and tell you that you're not, but you're not worth nothing. You're worth something. You're valuable. And the right person, the right friend, the right significant other will choose you. So, I know we've talked about this before, but, or maybe I've said this before, but this is a quote that I live by and stand by, is rejection is redirection. And there's a saying that I love, and it is, a man's rejection is God's redirection. If you've been rejected by someone and you feel like I'm not good enough and I'll never find something or someone that fits and something or someone that will value me, you're wrong. You will. And like, truly, I did not think that statement was true. And it's 1,000% true. Oftentimes, we won't walk away from a situation. We won't leave a relationship. We won't leave a job. We won't walk away from someone or something that is wrong for us and that doesn't value us and that doesn't choose us. So we have to have man's rejection. It has to literally be forced out of our lives for us to see that it wasn't even meant to be there in the first place and that it wasn't actually for us. And in my life, specifically, when I went through my divorce and when I left the church, I was like dragged out of those situations because I thought, no, God, I can make this work. I can make the church work. I can be a Mormon and love you. I can be a Mormon and it's okay. Like Mormonism, the LDS church is, I can accept the good parts and ignore the bad parts. It's fine. And I can stay in this marriage because I want it to work and just change this person and change the situation. And I kept trying so hard to make something happen and something work, a relationship, a job. Every time I've tried so hard to make something work in my life that isn't receptive, that isn't giving me the same effort, that isn't giving me the same love, I've seen in time that it's not for me. It's not for me. And sometimes things have to literally be forced out of your life for you to like wake up and see that it wasn't good. Like we hold on to things and we hold on to people. We hold on to relationships because we want them to work so badly when we're only holding ourselves back from what God actually has for us. And that's like that's just true. I'm not just saying that to say it to be like someone who just says that. Like, it's true. It's just true. Sorry, guys. Brief intermission. I don't know exactly where I left off, but something happened. So I had to deal with something. But we'll get back to what I was saying, which was man's rejection is oftentimes God's redirection. And then there is a quote by J.K. Rowling that says, every no gets you closer to the right yes. So my whole point in saying this is that oftentimes rejection feels like the end of the world, and it feels like the end of something good or something that you think is good. But truly, 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 and I'm telling you this not from a place of I'm just saying this because this is the thing to say or what the internet says or what people say. Like, I've lived it out. The situation in the relationship that I was in, that I was holding on to so tightly, and my deep fear of being abandoned and of being rejected from people in my life and relationships in my life held me back from the best things in my life. Like, truly, if I never was rejected and I never went through what I went through in my marriage, I wouldn't be in a relationship with the literal love of my life, best friend. Is our relationship perfect? No. Is he literally perfect for me? It's perfect, imperfectly perfect for me. He's literally the best. And it's like, it's crazy how tightly I was holding on to that. And same thing with me leaving the LDS church. Like, I was so scared of my family and my friends rejecting me. And even though that has happened in my life, truly because of leaving the church and people rejecting me, the best thing I have in this life is my relationship with Jesus Christ. And I wouldn't change it or trade it for the world. But if I would have held on so tightly to not wanting to receive rejection from people, I would have never been able to leave the church. And rejection is so worth finding what is for you and who is for you. And so I just want to encourage you with that. Rejection is redirection, as painful as it is. So let's talk about how to deal with rejection. I feel like the first and most important thing to remember and to remind yourself is that it's not about you. It's not always about you. Sometimes it may be, but most of the time it is a timing thing, a fit thing, and sometimes it just has to do with the circumstances. And specifically, I want to speak into relationships, romantic relationships. If you are not being chosen by someone in a romantic relationship, or you're even just being you're being rejected by someone you're interested in, just because someone doesn't see your value does not mean you're not valuable. I've said this and I'll say it again. If a package shows up at the wrong house with the wrong name on it, it's going to be returned to sender. It does not mean that the package doesn't have something valuable in it. We just have to remember that we're not everyone's cup of tea. And that's okay. We don't need to be, and we don't want to be. And so I know it's so hard. I know when I was rejected in romantic relationships or in someone that I was interested in, it makes me look so inward, and it makes me think, am I good enough? Am I, is there something wrong with me? Am I not smart enough? Am I not funny enough? Am I not good looking enough? What am I missing, right? It's so common to, when you face rejection, to immediately say, why? What's wrong with me? What am I lacking? What am I lacking? Why am I being rejected? And we internalize it so much. And if we really stepped back and looked at the bigger picture and were able to see it from a more logical standpoint rather than emotional, oftentimes we would see that it really has nothing to do with us and it has nothing to do with our value. But because inherently our bodies hate rejection, it's so easy to take it personal. It's so easy to look inward and be like, there's something wrong with me. But I just want to remind you that it's not always about you, and it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Rejection is just redirection. Redirection to the right person, redirection to the right job. Sometimes it just has so much less to do with you than you realize. Not to say that some rejection doesn't have something to do with you, but it's a lot less about you than you realize. Even more than it being a lot less about you than you realize, it's also, even if rejection is about you not being the right fit for someone or something, it does not mean that you are not enough for that person or that thing. It just means you aren't the right fit. And there's so many reasons. And killing yourself by trying to find the reason and degrading yourself by thinking about all the ways that you could be lacking as to why you're not being chosen in said situation is a waste of your time. The next thing that I want to talk about, and a way to help deal with rejection. I know this has been said so many times before, but let people leave. Let people go. Do not beg someone to choose you. Don't do it. Don't do it. Do not ask someone to fight for you. Do not beg someone to stay. If someone wants to leave, this has been said, and I'll say it again, open the door and let them. You do not want anything or anyone in your life that doesn't want to be there. Relationships are hard enough. Relationships are hard enough. It's already hard enough to have a healthy, successful relationship with two willing people. If you have someone that's not willing, don't have a relationship with them. If you have someone who wants to walk out the door, there's no way that you're ever going to be able to feel safe and secure in that relationship. I'm not saying that people don't change their minds. I'm not saying that people don't make mistakes. But I used to think that if I just did enough and if I just changed enough and if I just was enough, that someone would change their mind and they would decide that I was worth loving and I was worth choosing and worth fighting for. You cannot do that, because that person has to want it more than you. They have to want you more than you want them to want you. They have to want the relationship more than you want them to want the relationship. And it's such a hard pill to swallow, but relationships are hard enough with two people who love each other and that are willing and that want to be there. If you have one person who's halfway out the door or who is sitting at the door wanting to leave and you're trying to hold them back from leaving, trust me when I tell you, you are just hurting yourself and you are just holding yourself back from someone that wants to be in that room with you, wants to be in your safe space, wants to be in your life. Let them go. Let them go. If they don't love you, if they don't choose you, if you have to beg them to stay, if you have to fight for them to stay. And we've all done it. We've all been there before. It's so easy to do that, but you shouldn't have to convince someone to love you. And if you do, you're just like all of us, and I'm no better than you, and I've been there and I get it, but I'm just telling you, relationships are hard enough. If they have to be convinced to love you, it's just going to be hard to ever really have the type of relationship and love that you really deserve. Sad. Having no friends is better than having toxic ones. I have been asked to talk about friendship, and I really do want to do an episode on this, but I think oftentimes we think that we rather be in friend groups and or have friendships with people than, not. And in an ideal world, we would all have healthy friends and healthy relationships. But if friends make you feel bad about yourself, if a friend doesn't celebrate your wins and comfort you in your losses, they're not your friend. Or they have some things they need to work through. And you don't deserve to be treated that way. Just like relationships, perfection is impossible. And friendships and friends will let you down in life. And oftentimes our ego and our pride and our insecurities will get in the way of friendships. And it's not to say that you need to throw away every friend that you've ever had if they've ever made you feel bad about yourself or if they've ever done anything wrong. But ultimately, when you look at the nature of your friendship with someone, does that person want to see you succeed? Does that person comfort you when you're losing and celebrate you when you're winning? And if they don't, you may need to reassess that friendship. And like I said, having no friends is better than having friends that make you feel bad about yourself. Again, perfection is unrealistic. Relationships will fail you, friends will fail you, but really, really look at the friends in your life and if they're rejecting you. If they're not treating you like a friend. And just reassess if you need to set better boundaries in the friendship or if you even need to have the friendship. Rejection opens space for what and who is actually meant to be in your life. If you hold on to the people and the things that reject you and you try to force those situations, jobs, and relationships to work, you will never leave room for what you're actually supposed to have. There's a beautiful picture that I have on my phone, and it's of Jesus holding a big teddy bear behind his back and this little girl holding a little teddy bear, and she's holding on to it, and she's saying, God, I love it. I don't want to let it go. Lo and behold, behind God's back, he has a bigger, better bear for her. But she's holding on so tightly to this small bear. Don't be that little girl. Let go of what isn't for you, because if something isn't for you, there is something for you. There is someone for you. Not everyone and everything is going to be for you. And don't waste your time trying to force relationships and things to work that just aren't meant to, that aren't for you, that hurt you. Little girl. I think one of the hard things about rejection is that oftentimes, even as I'm sitting here trying to describe it to you guys and encourage you as to why it's not personal, it's so hard because oftentimes rejection is left so unclear and we're so unsure as to why we've been rejected, what we did wrong, what isn't enough for someone, all these things, right? And that is really unsettling because as humans, we all want answers. It's like we want it to make sense in our heads, and so we try to make sense of it. And when we don't know why and we don't know how, we try to figure that out to give ourselves closure, But oftentimes there's just not going to be a clear reason as to why you've been rejected in whatever way that is, in whatever relationship that is. And that's okay. But trying to learn to not overanalyze that is super powerful. When you get rejected by someone or something, instead of being like, why? What's wrong with me? Oftentimes you can just look at it and be like, well, that means something else is for me. Every time you get rejected from someone or something, it means that there is someone or something else for you. So the next thing is like, truly, the fear of rejection can oftentimes be worse than rejection itself. And I've definitely felt this and lived this in my life. I feared abandonment and rejection so deeply that I did everything in my power to try to control the outcome of these relationships and of these things that weren't for me, all to realize in the end that the fear of that rejection was worse than the actual rejection. And if I would have held on to those things, I wouldn't have or be where I am now. Rejection truly is an invitation for growth, because there is something really beautiful about being rejected, whether it's from a relationship, a friendship, or a job, and being able to work through the thoughts that you're not good enough and that you're unwanted and that you're unloved and that you're not valuable. Like, learning to place your value in your identity and who you are and who God says you are and who you say you are is so powerful, because people's opinions and the way people value you and the way significant others and loved ones and friends value you will continue to change based on circumstances, based on things they're going through, based on a million things, and you're going to continue to change. So your sense of identity and your sense of value has to come from you. And for me, it comes from also what God says about me and who God says I am. So no matter who rejects me, no matter who doesn't value me, I will continually work to not letting that change the way I view myself, and not letting someone else's lack of appreciation for my value be my lack of appreciation for my value. Like, choosing to value yourself even when other people don't is so important. And I feel like rejection really puts you in a position where you have to work towards that self-love, towards that self-identity, towards a higher self-esteem. And that is one of the biggest blessings I've received through all that I've gone through. And I just want to encourage you guys that you are so worthy of love, of success, of encouragement. You are so worthy of friends that make you feel loved, friends that make you feel good about yourself, friends that challenge you, friends that are there for you in your wins and are there for you in your losses. You deserve a partner who chooses you and who values you and who is fighting for you and who doesn't even want to crack the door to leave. You deserve someone that's not perfect, but you deserve someone that you don't have to convince to love you. Doesn't mean they're going to be perfect. Doesn't mean your friends are going to be perfect. But you deserve people who choose you. You do. You deserve love. You deserve patience, grace. And let me just tell you something. It is better to be alone than to be surrounded by people who don't actually love you, and people who don't value you, and people who you have to beg to love you. It is better to be in the comfort of your own peace and your own love than be surrounded by people who make you feel unloved, unvalued, and unworthy. You do not want those people in your life. And if you keep those people in your life and you don't allow the space, people who actually love you, people who actually value you, people who actually do see your worth, won't be able to come around because those spots will already be taken. That space is already taken by the wrong people. So you have to let go of those people and let go of those things to make room for the things that are supposed to be in your life. And we're all learning together. I'm not perfect. And just the last thing is that rejection doesn't define you. If you've been embarrassed about whether it's a relationship, a friendship, or a job, or whatever it is, if you've been rejected, if something hasn't worked out for you, if you failed at something, if someone has turned you down or something, it doesn't define your value, it doesn't define your worth, and it doesn't define your life. It doesn't define your life. Oftentimes, I've said this before, but when things fall apart and when things don't work out, things are actually falling into place behind the scenes. You just have no idea. And you can't see it. But looking back on my life and everything I've gone through and everything I went through, I had no idea what God had in store for me. No idea. And if I wouldn't have been rejected and if I wouldn't have let go of the people and the things that were hurting me and that weren't for me, I would never have what I have now. And I am committed to continuing to do that in my life, letting go of the things and the people that aren't good for me. And it's hard. It's so much harder to do it than people realize. So I hope that always when I have these episodes that this is an encouragement to you guys, but it's never me coming from a place of I know better or I've done better. No, I failed at this. 99% of the things I'm sitting here sharing with you guys, it's because I failed at these things. Not that I see it as failure because it was all learning, but I have been on the other end of all of these things that I'm talking about, and still in ways I am. And I've learned the hard way. And I'm still learning. So, you're not alone. And I love you. And I'm sorry today's episode was kind of all over the place. Literally within the filming of this episode, you guys obviously can't see it because you're on the other screen, but I've had to stop the episode like 3 times because all these things are going on in my personal life and my phone's getting blown up. But I really tried to be present with you guys here today to talk about this. So I hope you guys hear my heart. And I love you guys. You guys know if you want to support me, you can follow me, share this on your story, share it with a friend, go and leave the podcast a rating and review. I love you guys so much. And I'll close this episode out by saying, what elephants are in your room? My name is Nicole, and I will talk to you guys next week.